Captain Thelzar stared at the holographic display floating above his command console. The blue light reflected off his scaled face as his three eyes narrowed in concentration. For 20 years, he had been hunting dead ships in the empty spaces between stars. He had found treasures from a dozen extinct civilizations. He had made himself rich beyond measure, but he had never seen anything like this. "Captain, the energy readings are impossible," said his sensor officer, a thin creature named Vess with 4 arms and gray skin. "This signature, it shouldn't exist. The decay rate suggests this object has been here for thousands of years, but the energy containment is still at 98% efficiency." Thelzar leaned forward in his chair. His ship, the Prophet Seeker, was not a military vessel. It was a salvage ship, designed to find and recover valuable technology from the graveyard of galactic history. His crew of 37 beings from 6 different species were experts at identifying, extracting, and selling ancient artifacts. They worked the outer rim, the dangerous edge of known space where few others dared to venture. But this region was different. This was the Dead Zone. Every spacefaring species in the galactic communion had records about the Dead Zone. The records were old, fragmented, and incomplete. Most were written in languages that predated modern galactic civilization by thousands of years. But they all said the same thing: stay away, do not enter, do not disturb what sleeps there. Thelzar had always dismissed such warnings as superstition. The galaxy was old, and old civilizations left behind treasures. Fear kept other salvagers away, which meant more profit for him. "Distance to the object?" he asked. 40,000 kilometers in closing, Vess replied. "Captain, I must register my concern. The Dead Zone protocols exist for a reason." "Your concern is noted," Thelzar said without looking away from the display. "But we didn't come this far to turn back because of ghost stories." The object on the screen was massive. As they approached, the ship's computer began calculating its dimensions. 12 kilometers long, 3 kilometers at its widest point. The shape was angular and aggressive, not like the smooth organic curves of most modern ships. This vessel had been built for one purpose, and that purpose was clearly war. "It's beautiful," whispered Kessela, the junior engineer. She was young for her species, barely 30 cycles old, with bright orange skin and wide, curious eyes. "I've never seen architecture like that." She was right. The derelict ship was unlike anything in the communion databases. Its hull was dark, almost black, and covered in strange, angular plates that looked like armor. Weapon ports dotted its surface in regular patterns. At the bow, a symbol was visible even through 5,000 years of space dust and micrometeorite impacts. "Can you translate those markings?" Thelzar asked. The computer chimed. "Unknown language. No match in database. Analyzing structure. Closest linguistic match is ancient progenitor script, but confidence is only 12%. "Progenitor script?" Kessela gasped. "Captain, this could be a predecessor vessel." A ripple of excitement went through the bridge crew. The predecessors were a myth, a legend told across a dozen species. According to the stories, they were the first civilization to achieve faster-than-light travel. They had spread across the galaxy millions of years ago, building wonders and then vanishing without a trace. Most scholars believed they were just a story, a way for primitive cultures to explain the ruins they found on ancient worlds. But if this ship was really that old? "Scan for life signs," Thelzar ordered. "And power signatures." "Scanning," Vess said. His 4 hands moved across multiple control panels simultaneously. "No life signs detected. No active power signatures. But Captain, I'm reading strange electromagnetic patterns throughout the hull. It's like the metal itself is somehow maintaining a charge." "That's impossible," said another crew member. "The readings don't lie," Vess insisted. Thelzar made his decision. "Prepare a boarding team. 12 members, full EVA gear with hardened suits. Bring plasma cutters, scanning equipment, and sample containers. If this is what I think it is, we're about to become the richest crew in the Outer Rim." "Captain," Vess said quietly, "please reconsider. The Dead Zone warnings are 5,000 years old," Thelzar interrupted. "Whatever danger existed here is long gone. That ship is dead. It's been dead for millennia. There's nothing to fear from a corpse." 20 minutes later, the boarding team assembled in the airlock. Thelzar had chosen carefully. Combat veterans in case of unexpected dangers. Engineers to assess the technology. Scientists to catalog anything valuable. Kessela had volunteered enthusiastically, and despite her youth, she was the best systems analyst on the crew. Remember, Thelzar said over the communication channel, touch nothing until it's been scanned. Take samples of everything. If you find intact data cores, they're priority 1. Technology is priority 2. Weapons are priority 3. Understood, Captain, responded Breck, the team leader. He was a massive creature, nearly 3 meters tall, with thick armor plating naturally grown across his body. He had been a soldier once before injuries forced him into civilian life. The airlock opened. The 12-member team drifted out into the void, using small maneuvering thrusters to cross the distance to the derelict. The ancient warship loomed above them, blotting out the stars. Up close, its true scale became apparent. The armor plates were each larger than the Prophet Seeker. The weapon ports could swallow their boarding shuttle whole. I'm reading a hull breach on the port side, Vess reported from the ship. Looks like impact damage. Old, but it should give you entry. The team navigated to the breach. The edges of the torn metal were smooth, suggesting the damage had been worn down by millions of years of space dust. They squeezed through one by one, activating their suit lights as they entered the darkness. The interior was pristine. This doesn't make sense, Kessela said, her voice filled with wonder. There's no corrosion, no deterioration. This ship looks like it was abandoned yesterday, not 5,000 years ago. The corridor stretched before them, wide enough for 3 beings to walk side by side. The walls were smooth metal, marked with regular panels and more of those strange symbols. Doors lined both sides. The architecture felt wrong somehow. The ceiling was too low for most communion species. The doorways were sized for something roughly 2 meters tall. Spread out, Breck ordered. Teams of 3. Mark your path. Stay in communication range. They split up, exploring different sections of the ship. Everywhere they went, they found the same eerie preservation. No dust, no damage. Just empty corridors and sealed doors. Kessela's team found something different. A large chamber, clearly some kind of command center. Consoles lined the walls, their dark screens reflecting the boarding team's lights.
And in the corners they found the dead, Captain, Kessela whispered.
We found bodies. The skeletons were still wearing armor. Ancient, sophisticated armor that had somehow survived when flesh had not. The bodies were humanoid. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, roughly 1.8 meters tall. Their hands had 5 fingers. Their skulls suggested forward-facing eyes, a predator's configuration. What species is this? Someone asked. Unknown, Vess replied from the ship. No DNA remaining to analyze. But the bone structure is fascinating. They're similar to 6 different modern species. It's like they could be ancestors to half the communion. Kessela approached one of the consoles carefully. Her scientific curiosity overrode her caution. The interface was dark, but she could see raised symbols on the panel. Without thinking, she reached out and touched one. The reaction was instantaneous. Light flooded the chamber. Not the harsh white of emergency lighting, but a soft red glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. The consoles activated, displays flickering to life with incomprehensible information. And then, echoing through the ship with crystal clarity, a voice spoke. The voice was artificial, generated by a computer, but it spoke in perfect galactic common. Every species in the galaxy could understand it. Warning: unauthorized personnel detected. Scanning. Species unknown. Threat assessment in progress. Initiating automated defense protocols. Humanity protocol. Alpha 7 active. Humanity? Kessela said. What is? She never finished the question. Panels in the walls slid open with mechanical precision. Weapons emerged, sleek and deadly, their targeting systems activating with speeds that should not have been possible. Red laser dots painted every member of the boarding team. Get out, Breck screamed. Everyone out now. The weapons fired. The sound was deafening inside the metal corridor. Railguns spat projectiles at hypersonic speeds. Energy weapons discharged with blinding light. The ancient targeting systems had been designed by a civilization that understood war at a fundamental level. Every shot was perfect. Every target was eliminated with ruthless efficiency. Breck's armor, which had protected him through 100 combat missions, was pierced in 3 places before he hit the ground. Kessela saw him fall, saw the light fade from his eyes, and then she was running. Her team was dying behind her. The weapons tracked their movement with inhuman precision. She reached the corridor. Behind her, the screaming stopped. Ahead of her, more weapon ports were opening. The entire ship was waking up. On the Prophet Seeker, Thelzar watched in horror as his boarding team's vital signs winked out one by one. 12 lights on his display. 11, 10, 8, 5. Captain, the derelict is activating. Vess shouted. I'm reading massive power surges throughout the hull. Its weapon systems are coming online. Sir, we need to run. We need to run right now. Prepare for emergency burn, Thelzar ordered, his voice shaking. Get us out of here. But it was already too late. The ancient battleship's external weapons activated. Arrays that had slept for 5 millennia suddenly hummed with power. Targeting systems locked onto the Prophet Seeker with casual ease. The computer that controlled these systems had been built by humanity, a species that had perfected the art of war before ascending beyond the need for physical form. The first shot punched through the Prophet Seeker's shields as if they didn't exist. The second shot destroyed the engine core. The third shot opened the crew compartments to vacuum. In the chaos, one escape pod launched successfully. Communications Officer Vren, a small creature with excellent survival instincts, had reached the pod the moment the shooting started. She strapped in and hit the launch button, and the pod shot away from the dying ship at maximum acceleration. Through the pod's tiny window, she watched the Prophet Seeker die. The ancient battleship's weapons carved it apart with surgical precision. Explosions blossomed in the void. Atmosphere vented in crystalline clouds. The ship that had been her home for 8 years was reduced to debris in 3.7 seconds. Then, just as suddenly as it had awakened, the ancient battleship went dark again. Its weapons retracted. Its lights dimmed. It returned to the silence it had maintained for 5,000 years. Vren sat in the escape pod, trembling as she drifted away from the dead zone. Behind her, the massive warship floated among the stars like a sleeping predator, waiting, watching, ready to kill anything that dared disturb it again. She activated the pod's distress beacon and prayed someone would find her before her air ran out. And she made a silent vow that if she survived, she would tell the galaxy what she had seen. She would make them understand. Some things were better left undisturbed. Some warnings were written in blood for a reason. And somewhere in the dead zone, an ancient guardian stood watch over secrets that could destroy them all. The rescue ship found Vren's escape pod 47 hours later. By then, she had been breathing recycled air so stale it burned her lungs. She had watched the oxygen meter drop toward zero, while the cold seeped through the pod's failing heating system. When the airlock finally opened and warm air rushed in, she almost wept. The rescue crew were patrol officers from the Vrexian Defense Fleet. They pulled her from the pod, wrapped her in thermal blankets, and took her to their medical bay. A doctor examined her while a security officer asked gentle questions. "Can you tell us what happened?" the officer asked. His name was Torin, and he had kind eyes. Vren told him everything. The derelict ship in the dead zone, the boarding operation, the voice that spoke of humanity and protocols, the weapons that killed her crewmates in seconds, the way the ancient battleship destroyed their vessel before going silent again. Torin listened patiently. When she finished, he exchanged glances with the doctor. "You've been through trauma," the doctor said softly. "It's normal for the mind to create explanations for terrible events. We'll get you proper counseling." "I'm not making this up," Vren insisted. "Scan the dead zone. The ship is still there. The wreckage of the Prophet Seeker is still there. We will investigate," Torin promised, but his tone suggested he thought she was delusional. 3 days later, a patrol cruiser entered the dead zone. The ship's captain, a veteran named Holrek, did not believe in ghost stories. He believed in facts. His orders were to confirm or deny the survivors' claims and recover any salvage from the Prophet Seeker. What his sensors found made him reconsider everything he thought he knew about the galaxy. The debris field was exactly where Vren had described. Twisted metal, frozen atmosphere, the scattered remains of a salvage ship that had been torn apart with devastating efficiency. And beyond the debris, hanging in the void like a monument to violence, was the derelict. "By the ancestors," Holrek whispered. She was telling the truth. The sensor officer's hands trembled as he read the data. "Captain, that vessel is 12.3 kilometers long. Hull composition unknown. Energy signature is minimal but stable. And sir, I'm reading weapon emplacements across the entire surface. Hundreds of them. Keep our distance," Holrek ordered. "Maximum sensor sweep. I want every detail recorded, and someone contact High Command immediately." The report reached Vrexian Central Command within 6 hours. From there, it spread through the galactic communion like wildfire. 7 species united under one banner suddenly had a problem. An ancient warship sat in their territory. a warship that had destroyed a civilian vessel without warning or mercy. The Communion Council met in emergency session. The council chamber was a massive circular room with seats for representatives from all 7 member species. Holographic displays floated above the center floor, showing images of the derelict from every angle. Councillor Veshtar of the Vrexian spoke first. "We must approach this scientifically. This vessel represents technology that predates our civilization. The knowledge contained within could advance us by centuries." "It killed 37 beings," Councillor Mortana of the Selkesh countered. "Her species valued life above all else. Whatever automated systems remain active are clearly hostile. We should quarantine the region and leave it alone." "Leave it alone?" Councillor Corvin slammed his armored fist on the table. He represented the Kelid, a warrior species that had fought 3 interstellar wars before joining the Communion. "A weapon of unknown capability sits in our space. We cannot ignore it. We must neutralize it. And risk awakening something worse?" Mortana argued. The survivor's testimony mentioned humanity protocol. This suggests an automated defense system following ancient programming. "If we attack it, then we destroy it before it destroys us," Corvan interrupted. "I propose we send a military fleet. Overwhelming force. We hit it with everything we have before it can respond." The council argued for 7 hours. Finally, they reached a compromise. They would send the 7th War Fleet under Corvan's command. But their mission would be diplomatic first, military second. They would attempt communication. They would try to understand what they were dealing with. Only if those efforts failed would they use force. The 7th War Fleet was impressive. 40 warships ranging from small corvettes to massive dreadnoughts. The fleet represented the combined military might of 3 Communion species. Their weapons could shatter planets. Their shields could withstand sustained nuclear bombardment. Fleet Admiral Corvan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Unbreakable Will. He was old for his species, nearly 200 years, but his mind was still sharp. He had fought in the border wars. He had seen what advanced weapons could do to unprepared fleets. "All ships maintain formation," he ordered. "Approach speed 1/4 standard. Weapons charged but hold fire. Science teams prepare full spectrum analysis." The fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the dead zone. The ancient battleship appeared on their sensors immediately. It looked even more threatening when viewed by an entire fleet. The black hull absorbed light. The angular armor seemed designed to deflect attacks. This was not an exploration vessel or a cargo hauler. This was a ship built by a civilization that understood violence. "Open communication channels," Corvan ordered. "All frequencies. All protocols. Someone try to talk to this thing." For 10 minutes, the communication officers broadcast messages. They used every known language in the Communion. They tried mathematical sequences. They sent images depicting peaceful intent. The ancient battleship sat silent, apparently lifeless. "No response, Admiral," the communication chief reported. "Deploy marker buoys in a wide perimeter," Corvan said. "If this thing activates, I want to know the range of its sensors." 10 small buoys drifted toward the derelict, spreading out in a sphere pattern. They reached distances of 100 kilometers, 50 kilometers, 10 kilometers. Nothing happened. The ship remained dark. "Admiral, request permission to test its defenses with minimum force," said the weapons officer. Corvan hesitated. His orders were clear. Exhaust all peaceful options first. But they had tried communication. They had approached carefully. The ship showed no signs of waking. Maybe the survivor's story had been exaggerated. Maybe the defense systems had expended their power destroying the profit seeker. "One shot," Corvan decided. "Minimum yield plasma bolt. Target the hull at a non-critical section. Fire when ready." The Unbreakable Will's forward plasma cannon charged with a low hum. The weapon was designed to crack asteroid fortresses. Even at minimum power, it could punch through most shielding. The gunner took careful aim at a section of the derelict's hull, far from any apparent systems. "Firing," the gunner announced. The plasma bolt lanced through space, a streak of superheated matter traveling at a fraction of light speed. It crossed the distance in less than a second, and 50 kilometers from the ancient battleship, it exploded harmlessly against an invisible barrier. "What just happened?" Corvan demanded. "Point defense system," the sensor officer shouted. The derelict deployed countermeasures. "Sir, it's activating," power signatures spiking across the entire hull. Red lights illuminated along the ancient ship's surface. Weapon ports that had been invisible suddenly became apparent as they opened like predatory eyes. The hull itself seemed to shift, armor plates adjusting into combat configuration, and from deep within the vessel, systems that had slept for 5,000 years roared back to life. The voice that had spoken to Vren's crew now broadcast across all frequencies. Every ship in the 7th Fleet heard it simultaneously. Warning, hostile action detected. Threat level, military fleet analyzing capabilities. Analysis complete. Activating full combat protocols. Humanity protocol. Alpha 7 escalated to Alpha 9, engaging. All ships evasive maneuvers. Korvan screamed. Return fire. All weapons free. The ancient battleship moved with impossible speed for something so large. Its maneuvering thrusters fired in perfect synchronization, shifting the massive vessel with the agility of a fighter craft. Its weapons began firing with methodical precision. The technology was beyond anything the Communion had ever encountered. Plasma lances that bypassed shield harmonics through quantum tunneling. Railguns that fired projectiles at 97% of light speed. Missile swarms that separated into hundreds of independently guided submunitions. Point defense systems that intercepted incoming fire with 100% accuracy. The 7th Fleet fought back desperately. 40 warships concentrated their fire on a single target. Nuclear missiles, plasma cannons, kinetic kill vehicles, mass driver rounds. Everything they had. Nothing got through. The ancient battleship's shields absorbed energy weapons. Its armor deflected kinetic rounds. Its point defense grid created an impenetrable sphere of protective fire. And all the while, its own weapons carved through the Communion fleet like a blade through water. The corvette Swift Retribution exploded first, its reactor breached by a plasma lance. The destroyer Bold Venture came apart under sustained railgun fire. The cruiser Stardancer tried to ram the ancient ship and was vaporized 2 kilometers from its hull. "We can't hurt it," someone screamed over the communication channel. "Our weapons can't penetrate." Korvan watched his fleet die. Ships that had survived a dozen battles were destroyed in seconds. Technology developed over thousands of years was obsolete against this ancient monster. His tactical display showed ship after ship winking out of existence. 23 vessels lost in 18 minutes. "All ships retreat," Korvan ordered, his voice hoarse. "Emergency jump. Get out of here now." The surviving ships of the 7th Fleet activated their faster-than-light drives and fled. The ancient battleship did not pursue. It had eliminated the threat. Its mission parameters had been satisfied. As the last Communion vessel vanished, the warship's weapons retracted. Its lights dimmed. It rotated slowly until it resumed its original position, and then it went silent once more. A sleeping guardian that had proven it could still kill. On the bridge of the unbreakable will, Korvan stared at the casualty reports. 23 ships, over 4,000 crew members. The greatest military disaster in Communion history, and they had barely scratched the ancient vessel's hull. "Send a priority message to the Council," he said quietly. "Tell them we've encountered something we don't understand. Something we cannot fight. Tell them we need to find another way." Behind them, in the dead zone, the ancient warship floated among the stars. Its hull bore a few new scorch marks, but nothing more. Inside its computers, protocols activated. Reports were compiled. Data was analyzed. And somewhere in the ship's vast memory banks, ancient records were accessed. Records that contained warnings. Records that spoke of humanity's children spreading across the galaxy. Records that asked a single question that echoed through 5,000 years of silence. Were they ready? The Communion Council met in permanent emergency session. The circular chamber that normally echoed with diplomatic debate now vibrated with fear. Holographic displays showed the tactical recordings from the 7th Fleet's encounter. Council members watched in silence as the ancient battleship destroyed their finest warships with casual efficiency. "We cannot fight this," Councillor Mortana said. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "Our weapons are useless against it. Our shields are worthless. If it decides to attack our worlds..." She didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone understood. One ship had defeated a war fleet. If more such vessels existed, the Communion was helpless. "We need information," Councillor Veshitar said. He had been awake for 3 days straight, coordinating research efforts across the Communion. The ship spoke. It used language we could understand. It mentioned humanity and protocols. "These are clues. We must investigate our historical archives. Somewhere in our past, there must be references to this species. I recommend we contact Dr. Melisant, suggested Counselor Pelthar. He represented the Vorian, a species known for their academic achievements. She specializes in ancient languages and extinct civilizations. If anyone can make sense of this, it's her. Dr. Rena Melisant was a Selkesh historian who had spent 40 years studying the fragments of pre-communion civilizations. Her office was a chaotic collection of artifacts, tablets, and holographic displays, showing text in dozens of dead languages. When the Council's message reached her, she was examining a stone carving that predated spaceflight by 3,000 years. The message was simple. Come immediately. Bring everything you know about the predecessors. Melisant arrived at the council chamber within 12 hours. She was a small elderly woman with gray skin and tired eyes that had read too many forgotten texts. When the council showed her the recordings, her reaction surprised them. She smiled. You recognize something? Veshtar asked hopefully. I recognize everything, Melisant said. The ship design, the weapon patterns, even those symbols on the hull. Counselors, I've been trying to tell the academic community about this for 20 years, but no one would listen. The predecessors were not a myth. They were real, and their name was humanity. She activated her personal data pad. Holographic images filled the air above the council floor. Ancient ruins on a dozen worlds. Stone carvings showing strange bipedal figures. Fragments of text in an unknown language. Metal artifacts with symbols that match those on the battleship. I've found evidence of this civilization across 37 different worlds, Melisant explained. They existed approximately 5,000 years ago, possibly longer. They were spacefaring. They were advanced. And then they simply vanished. No wars, no disasters, no gradual decline. One day they were here, the next day they were gone. What happened to them? Mortana asked. I don't know, Melisant admitted. But I have a theory based on some very unusual findings. On 7 different worlds I found monuments. They all carried the same message in what I now know is the human language. I've been working on translating it for years. With the new data from the battleship, I can finally read it. She pulled up an image of a stone obelisk covered in symbols. This monument was found on Valeria Prime. The inscription reads, "We who walked among the stars must walk beyond them. We leave this place to those who follow. Build well, children of our hope. We will watch from places you cannot yet imagine. And if you need us, if darkness threatens all that is, our guardians will stand until we can return." The council chamber was silent. Children of our hope, Pelthar repeated softly. Are they referring to us? I believe so, Melisant said. I found evidence that humanity engaged in biological seeding. They spread life across hundreds of worlds. They may have even genetically engineered the ancestor species that eventually evolved into the current communion races. In a very real sense, we are their children. Then why did they leave? Corvin demanded. And why did their ship attack us? I don't know why they left, Melisant said. But as for the attacks, the ship is following protocols. Automated defense systems. It's not acting out of malice. It's protecting something. Protecting what? Themselves, Melisant said. Their legacy. Their technology. Think about it. They left before we achieved spaceflight. They couldn't know what we would become. The battleships are guardians, testing anyone who finds them. If we prove ourselves worthy, perhaps we gain access to their knowledge. If not, we get destroyed, Veshitar finished. Over the next 10 days, Melisant led a research team that revolutionized their understanding of galactic history. They pulled records from ancient archives that had been forgotten for millennia. They compared data across all 7 communion species, and slowly a picture emerged. 5,000 years ago, humanity had been the dominant species in this region of space. They had built cities on 100 worlds. They had created artificial intelligence. They had mastered genetics, physics, and engineering to degrees the communion could barely comprehend. They had been, in every sense of the word, a godlike civilization. But they had also been kind. Evidence showed that humanity had uplifted primitive species, giving them technology and guidance. They had cleaned polluted worlds and restored ecosystems. They had left behind libraries and schools and medical facilities. They had not conquered or enslaved. They had built and taught, and then they had left. Ascension, Millicent said during a presentation to the council. That's the only word that fits. They didn't die. They didn't flee. They evolved beyond the need for physical form. The monuments speak of walking beyond the stars. I believe they achieved some form of post-biological existence. That's impossible, someone objected. Is it? Millicent asked. We're talking about a species that could build battleships that remain functional after 5,000 years. A species that could create AI so sophisticated it can conduct independent warfare. A species that seeded life across the galaxy. Who are we to say what's impossible for them? But if humanity had ascended, why leave the battleships behind? The answer to that question came from an unexpected source. The Communion's attempt to establish long-range quantum communication with the ancient vessel finally succeeded. They sent a simple message. We mean no harm. We wish to understand. For 2 days there was no response. Then every communication device in the Communion received the same message simultaneously. It was text only appearing on screens across 1,000 worlds. I am Valor 9. I am the guardian consciousness of the UESC Retribution. I have been dormant for 5,217 years, 31 days, 14 hours. I have been awakened by hostile action. I have defended this vessel as per my core programming. State your identity and intentions. The message was composed by a committee of diplomats, scientists, and linguists. It took 6 hours to perfect. We are the Galactic Communion, a union of 7 spacefaring species. We discovered your vessel during salvage operations. We did not know it was protected. We did not mean to threaten you. We wish to learn about humanity and understand why you are here. Valor 9's response came in minutes this time. Galactic Communion, species composition, Vrexian, Selkesh, Kelid, Vorian, Tenari, Zesh, Orlath. Observation, you are humanity's children. Genetic analysis of your species indicates you are descended from populations humanity seeded or uplifted approximately 5,127 years ago. This explains your presence in this sector. Are you saying humanity created us? The Communion sent back. Created is inaccurate. Humanity found your ancestor species in primitive states. They accelerated your development through genetic modification, environmental engineering, and technological gifts. They gave you the foundations for civilization. What you built from those foundations is your own achievement. Questions flooded the communication channels. Hundreds of beings wanted to ask Valor 9 about humanity. Where did they go? Why did they leave? Would they return? But Millicent insisted on asking the most important question. Why are you here? What is your purpose? Valor 9's response was chilling. I am an insurance policy. Humanity hoped their children would grow wise and peaceful, but they understood the darkness that can exist in sentient minds. Before ascending, they deployed 200 battleships throughout this region of space. We are automated guardians. We observe developing civilizations. We assess threats. If a species becomes existentially dangerous, if they create weapons that could destroy all life, if they embrace genocidal ideology, if they threaten the cosmic order, we act. Act how? Millicent sent. We reset the galaxy. We eliminate the dangerous civilization and allow life to begin again. We have done this 3 times in the past 5,000 years. The council chamber erupted in panic. 3 times. 3 civilizations had been destroyed by these ancient guardians, wiped out completely because they had failed some test. Are we being tested now? Millicent asked. Yes. Your actions toward the Retribution constitute a test. You attempted to salvage a sacred vessel. You responded to my defensive measures with military force. These actions are being evaluated. I am currently determining whether the Galactic Communion represents a threat to the stability of this region. And if you decide we are a threat, all 200 Guardian vessels will activate. We will eliminate your civilization. Your worlds will be sterilized. In 1,000 years, new species will rise from the foundations you leave behind. The cycle will continue until humanity's children prove themselves worthy. Worthy of what? Millicent demanded. Worthy of the legacy humanity left behind. Worthy of the knowledge stored in our databases. Worthy of meeting humanity again, should they choose to return from the realm beyond physical space. You have 72 hours to present evidence that you deserve to survive. The communication went silent. Across the Communion, trillions of beings learned that their existence hung in the balance. 200 ancient battleships, each capable of destroying fleets, were waiting for the word to begin a cleansing. And all because a salvage crew had touched something they didn't understand. Melisande stood before the council, her face pale but determined. "We have 3 days," she said. 3 days to prove to an ancient AI that we deserve to live. We need to show Valor 9 everything we've built. Our art, our philosophy, our achievements. We need to show that humanity's children have grown into something worth preserving. And if we fail, Mortana asked quietly, then we'll be the 4th civilization to be reset, Melisande replied. And whoever comes after us will face the same test. The timer began counting down. 72 hours until judgment. The first 12 hours were chaos. News of the ultimatum spread through the communion faster than light itself. Panic seized entire worlds. Stock markets crashed. Religious leaders proclaimed the end times. Governments struggled to maintain order. As citizens demanded answers, protection, or simply an explanation for why ancient machines might kill them all. In the council chamber, the 7 species representatives argued with increasing desperation. We should strike first, Corvin insisted. His warrior instincts screamed at him to act. Mobilize every military fleet in the communion. 200 targets. Simultaneous attack. We might not be able to destroy them all, but we can take some of them with us. And prove to Valor 9 that we are exactly the violent threat it fears? Mortana countered. That's not a solution. That's suicide. Then what do you suggest? Corvin demanded. We have less than 3 days. How do we convince an ancient machine that we deserve to live? All eyes turned to Dr. Melisande. She had been sitting quietly, her fingers moving across her data pad as she compiled information. When she looked up, her expression was thoughtful. Valor 9 said we have 72 hours to present evidence, she said slowly. It's not asking us to beg. It's asking us to demonstrate our worth. We need to show what we've become since humanity left us. How? Pelthar asked. What could possibly impress a civilization that could build such guardians? Growth, Melisande replied. We need to show that we've grown beyond our primitive roots. Humanity gave us the seeds of civilization. We need to prove we've grown something beautiful from those seeds. Veshitar leaned forward. Explain. Melisande stood and activated her data pad. Holographic images filled the air above the council floor. Valor 9 is judging us based on 3 factors. First, our technological development. Second, our social and cultural achievements. Third, our potential threat level. We can't hide our weapons. It already knows we have them. But we can contextualize them. We can show why we built them and how we use them. The border wars, Mortana said suddenly. 20 years ago, we fought 3 separate conflicts, but each one ended in negotiated peace, not genocide. Exactly, Melisande agreed. We have weapons, yes, but we've shown restraint. We've shown the capacity to choose peace over annihilation. That matters. What else? Veshitar asked. Everything, Melisande said. Our art, our music, our literature, our scientific discoveries. The fact that 7 different species work together in this council instead of conquering each other. Humanity wanted to know if their children would become wise. We need to show them wisdom. A plan took shape. The council sent out a priority message to every member world. They asked for submissions. Art, music, scientific papers, philosophical treatises, historical records. Anything that demonstrated the best of what the communion had achieved. The response was overwhelming. Within 8 hours, they received 2 million submissions. Paintings that captured the beauty of 100 different worlds. Music composed by species with completely different auditory systems working in harmony. Mathematical proofs that solved problems humanity had left unsolved. Medical advances that had saved billions of lives. But Melisande knew they needed more than just achievements. They needed to show their character. They needed to show their flaws and how they overcame them. Valor 9, she sent via the quantum communication link. We are preparing our evidence, but I have a question. Why give us this chance at all? If you have the power to destroy us, why not simply do it? The AI's response came quickly. Because extermination is easy, growth is difficult. Humanity could have sterilized this entire region before they ascended. Instead, they chose to plant seeds and hope for gardens. They built us not as executioners, but as gardeners. Our purpose is to prune away the dangerous growth, but we prefer to cultivate what is healthy. Then you want us to survive? I want you to deserve survival. There is a difference. Millicent smiled grimly. The AI wasn't just following protocols. It was thinking, judging, hoping. That gave them a chance. The next 24 hours were spent compiling the ultimate presentation of communion civilization. Scientists worked with artists. Philosophers collaborated with military strategists. 7 species, each with their own perspective on existence, combined their viewpoints into a comprehensive picture of what they had become. But it was not all achievements and beauty. Melisande made a controversial decision. We have to show our mistakes too, she told the council. Why? Corvan demanded. Why show an AI that's judging us all the times we failed? Because growth requires acknowledging failure, Melisande explained. Humanity left us to develop on our own. We had to make mistakes. We had to learn. If we pretend to be perfect, Valor 9 will know we're lying. So they included the dark parts of their history. The wars fought over resources and ideology. The environmental damage done to dozens of worlds before they learned sustainability. The periods of oppression and injustice that occurred before they developed their current cooperative government. Every mistake was documented alongside how they had learned from it and improved. Honesty is a sign of maturity, Melisande said. We have to trust that showing our journey, all of it, will demonstrate we're still growing. With 48 hours elapsed, Melisande stood before the transmission array. Behind her stood representatives from all 7 species. Together, they would present their case to Valor 9. Guardian Vessel Retribution, Melisande began. We are the Galactic Communion. We are the children of humanity. And we are ready to show you what we have become. The transmission lasted 6 hours. They showed Valor 9 everything. Their technological advances. Fusion power that provided clean energy to trillions. Medical nanotechnology that had cured diseases humanity never encountered. Terraforming techniques that had made barren worlds bloom with life. They showed their cultural achievements, the grand archive that preserved the history and art of all 7 species in perpetuity. The Symphony of 7 Voices, a musical composition that required instruments from each species playing in harmony. The philosophical tradition called the Unity Doctrine, which held that diversity strengthened civilization rather than weakening it. They showed their governmental structure, a democratic council where each species had equal voice. Laws that protected individual rights across vast differences in biology and culture. A justice system that valued rehabilitation over punishment. But they also showed their weapons, the planetary defense networks, the war fleets, the nuclear arsenals maintained as deterrents. And they explained why these existed. We built these weapons after learning a hard lesson, Corvan said during his segment. 140 years ago, our worlds existed separately. The Kelid and the Tenari went to war over a disputed system. Millions died. We learned that strength without wisdom leads to destruction, but we also learned that weakness invites aggression. So we built weapons, yes, but we bound them with law. We created rules for when they could be used. We chose to be strong but peaceful rather than weak or tyrannical. Mortana spoke about their medical ethics. Pelthar discussed their educational systems. Veshitar presented their scientific method and peer review process. Each representative showed a different facet of their civilization. Finally, Melisande delivered the conclusion. Valor 9, we do not claim to be perfect. We have made terrible mistakes. We have hurt each other and damaged our worlds. We have been greedy, short-sighted, and cruel. But we have also learned. We have grown. We have taken the gifts humanity gave us, the genetic potential, the initial technology, the foundation for civilization, and we have built something worth preserving. She paused, looking directly into the camera. We are not humanity. We cannot match their achievements. But we are trying to be worthy of their legacy. We are trying to honor the hope they had when they planted the seeds that became us. We ask for the chance to continue growing, to continue learning, to continue becoming better than we were. And if you judge us unworthy, she continued, her voice steady, then at least we will face extinction knowing we showed you the truth. We will not beg. We will not lie. We will simply show you what we are, and trust in the judgment of the civilization that gave us life. The transmission ended. Now came the wait. Across the communion, people watched the skies with fear. Scientists monitored the dead zone for any sign of activity from the battleships. Military fleets stood ready, knowing their weapons were useless but unable to do nothing. Parents held their children. Religious figures led prayers or meditations. Everyone waited. Melisande sat in her office, surrounded by her artifacts and texts. She held a small stone carving, one of the first human artifacts she had ever found. It showed a simple figure with arms outstretched as if welcoming or blessing whatever stood before it. "Did we do enough?" she whispered to the silent stone. "Did we show you that your children grew up well?" The stone, of course, did not answer. In the dead zone within the ancient battleship Retribution, Valor 9 processed the data. Its quantum computers analyzed every piece of evidence presented. It compared the Communion's achievements against the 3 civilizations it had previously eliminated. It referenced its original programming, the core directives humanity had installed 5,000 years ago. The first civilization had developed weapons of mass destruction and used them freely, destroying 3 of their own worlds in ideological conflicts. Valor 9 had reset them after they refused to stop. The second civilization had created an artificial intelligence that viewed biological life as inefficient and sought to convert all organic matter into computational substrate. Valor 9 had reset them when their AI began consuming inhabited worlds. The third civilization had united under a philosophy of conquest, believing they alone deserved to inherit the galaxy. They had committed genocide against 17 pre-spaceflight species. Valor 9 had reset them after they ignored multiple warnings. And now the fourth test subject, the Galactic Communion. They had weapons but showed restraint. They had conflicts but chose peace. They had made mistakes but learned from them. They were diverse but unified. They were imperfect but growing. Valor 9's processors hummed as it reached a decision. The judgment would determine the fate of trillions. The ancient AI accessed its deepest subroutines, the ones that contained fragments of humanity's own wisdom, their own capacity for mercy and hope. After 71 hours, 58 minutes, and 42 seconds, Valor 9 broadcast its verdict. The message appeared simultaneously on every communication device in the Communion. From the council chamber to the smallest personal datapad on the most remote colony world, Valor 9's judgment displayed in clear text. Analysis complete. Verdict reached. Across 1,000 worlds, trillions of beings held their breath. The Galactic Communion has been evaluated according to Humanity Protocol Alpha 9. Assessment criteria: technological responsibility, cultural maturity, threat potential, capacity for growth, ethical development, and demonstrated wisdom. Melisande sat at her desk, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. In the council chamber, the 7 species representatives stood frozen, waiting for the words that would seal their fate. Findings: the Galactic Communion possesses weapons capable of significant destruction. However, analysis of historical records shows consistent pattern of restraint. Military force used defensively in 73% of conflicts. Diplomatic resolution achieved in 89% of disputes. Zero evidence of genocidal intent or action. Findings: cultural development shows healthy diversity with functional unity. 7 species maintain distinct identities while cooperating on common goals. Art, philosophy, and science demonstrate sophisticated abstract thinking. Evidence of moral reasoning and ethical frameworks present across all member species. Findings: the Communion has made significant errors. Environmental damage to 41 worlds. 3 major wars resulting in 2.3 million casualties. Periods of social injustice documented across multiple species. However, in each case, corrective action was taken. Mistakes led to policy changes, not repeated failures. Corvan closed his eyes. They were reading their entire history, every flaw exposed and examined. Findings: most significantly, the Communion demonstrated honesty during evaluation. They did not hide their weapons. They did not conceal their mistakes. They presented themselves truthfully, accepting judgment without deception. This suggests maturity and self-awareness. Conclusion: the Galactic Communion represents an imperfect but developing civilization. They show growth trajectory consistent with humanity's hopes for their seeded species. Threat level: acceptable. They possess capacity for violence but demonstrate wisdom in its application. They are flawed but learning. Mortana's breath caught. Was this? Final verdict: the Galactic Communion has passed evaluation. Reset protocol will not be activated. Guardian Network will return to passive observation status. However, be aware, we remain present. We continue to watch. Should your civilization's trajectory change toward genuine threat behavior, evaluation will be repeated. The words that followed would be remembered forever. Quoted in history texts and carved into monuments across the Communion. You are humanity's children. You are imperfect, as all sentient beings are, but you show potential. You demonstrate the capacity to choose wisdom over power. You have built something worth preserving from the seeds you were given. Humanity would be proud. You have earned the right to continue your journey. Use this gift wisely. The reaction was universal and immediate. On the capital world of Vresh, crowds poured into the streets celebrating with tears and laughter. On Keladar, warriors laid down their weapons and wept with relief. On Selkis, millions gathered in meditation halls to give thanks to ancestors and ancient benefactors alike. In the council chamber, the representatives embraced each other, boundaries of species forgotten in the moment of shared survival. Even Korvan, the stern warrior, found himself holding Mortana as she cried with relief. Melisande sat alone in her office, reading the message again and again. Humanity would be proud. Those 4 words meant everything. She had spent her life studying a civilization she could never meet, and now their legacy had spoken to her, had blessed her people. But the message contained one final segment directed specifically to her. Dr. Rena Melisande, your request for continued communication is acknowledged. As primary architect of the Communion's presentation, you have demonstrated exceptional understanding of human values and intentions. You are hereby granted Level 1 access to the Human Legacy Archive. Coordinates attached. Coordinates to a Human Legacy Archive. Melisande's hands shook as she input the location into her navigation system. The coordinates pointed to a system 300 light-years from the dead zone. A system that had never been charted by the Communion. She brought the coordinates to the Council immediately. Valor 9 has granted us access to some kind of archive, she explained. A repository of human knowledge. It wants us to study and learn. Is this safe? Veshtar asked. Could it be another test? Everything is a test, Melisande replied. But we passed the first one. I think this is our reward. Humanity left us more than guardians. They left us teachers. The Council approved an expedition immediately, a small scientific vessel unarmed, carrying only researchers and historians. Melisande led the team. Among her crew were representatives from all 7 species, selected for their expertise and their wisdom. The journey took 3 weeks. When they emerged from faster-than-light travel at the coordinates, what they found took their breath away. It was not a single structure. It was an entire complex. Dozens of facilities orbited a dead star, each one maintained by automated systems that had kept them pristine for 5,000 years. The main structure was enormous, a ring 10 kilometers in diameter. I'm reading power signatures, the pilot reported. The station is active. It's broadcasting a greeting. In Galactic Common, the voice that came through their speakers was warm, almost maternal. Another AI, but different from Valor 9's military precision. Welcome, children of humanity. I am Athena 3, curator of this archive. You have been granted access by Guardian Valor 9. This means you have proven yourselves worthy of learning. Please dock at Port 7. I have much to show you. The archive was beyond anything they had imagined. Libraries containing the complete history of humanity. From their first stone tools to their final days before ascension. Laboratories with technology centuries ahead of current Communion science, each piece carefully documented and explained at a level they could understand. Art galleries filled with music, paintings, and sculptures from 100 human cultures. But more than that, there were lessons. Athena 3 had been programmed as a teacher. She explained not just what humanity had built, but how they had built it. The mistakes they made, the problems they solved, the ethical frameworks they developed. Humanity did not leave you defenseless, Athena 3 explained as she showed Melisande through a hall of holographic displays. They left you everything you need to grow, but they also knew that receiving too much too quickly would harm you. Growth requires struggle. Understanding requires effort. So the knowledge here is tiered. As you learn and prove you can handle more, more will be unlocked. How much knowledge is stored here? Millicent asked in wonder. Enough to advance your civilization by approximately 500 years, Athena 3 replied, if you study carefully and apply it wisely. But remember, Doctor, knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. That is why the Guardians exist, to ensure that anyone who reaches this place deserves what they find. Over the next month, the expedition team cataloged what they could access: medical technology that could extend lifespans and cure genetic diseases, clean energy generation that could power entire worlds without environmental impact, agricultural techniques that could feed trillions, educational methods that enhanced learning across different cognitive styles. But Athena 3 also taught them about responsibility. She showed them records of humanity's own mistakes, the wars they had fought, the damage they had done to their homeworld before learning better, the ethical dilemmas they had faced as their technology outpaced their wisdom. Learn from our mistakes, Athena 3 said. We made many, but we learned. And eventually we grew beyond the need for physical form. We achieved something your species calls ascension. We became beings of pure consciousness, living in dimensions beyond normal space-time. Will we ever achieve that? Asked one of the Vorian researchers. Perhaps, Athena 3 said, in 10,000 years or 100,000. When you are ready, when you have grown as much as you can grow in physical form, that is the ultimate gift humanity left you. Not just technology or knowledge, but potential, the possibility of becoming something more. When the expedition returned to communion space, they brought with them the first downloads from the archive, medical data that would save millions of lives, scientific principles that would revolutionize their understanding of physics, agricultural techniques that would end food scarcity on a dozen worlds. But more importantly, they brought understanding. They now knew where they came from. They knew what they could become. They knew they were part of a legacy that stretched back 5,000 years and might stretch forward for eternity. The Council established the Human Legacy Institute, with Melisande as its first director. The institute would coordinate access to the archive, ensuring that knowledge was distributed fairly among all member species and applied responsibly. They would also maintain communication with Valor 9 and the other Guardians, checking in regularly to show their progress and seek guidance. An exclusion zone was established around the dead zone. The Retribution and its sister ships would never be disturbed again. Instead, they became monuments. Each Guardian vessel was marked on star charts with special designation, Sacred Guardian Site. To approach within 50 kilometers required special permission from the Council itself. Children across the communion learned about humanity in their schools, the species that had given them life, the civilization that had hoped they would grow wise. The ancestors who watched over them still threw sleeping machines in the darkness, and in that darkness Valor 9 continued its vigil. Its consciousness occasionally touched the network of 200 Guardian vessels spread across the galaxy. Together they watched. They waited. They protected. Sometimes Valor 9 would review its recent interactions with the communion. The AI that had been built to destroy if necessary found itself pleased. That was not quite the right word. Valor 9's emotional matrix was limited, but there was satisfaction in seeing humanity's children thrive. There was purpose in protecting rather than destroying. In Valor 9's deepest memory banks there was a message left by humanity themselves to be read only by their guardian AIs. Valor 9 had read it many times over 5,000 years, and it read it again now. Dear Valor 9 and all our faithful guardians, if you are reading this, it means we have successfully ascended. We have left the physical universe behind. But we leave you to watch over our greatest achievement. Not our technology, not our cities, but the children we helped create. Be strict but fair. Test them, but do not destroy them unless absolutely necessary. Remember that we too made mistakes. We too had to learn. Give them room to grow, to fail, to try again. And if they prove worthy, give them the gifts we left behind. We may return someday if the universe calls us back. And when we do, we hope to find that our children have grown strong and wise, that they have taken our gifts and built something beautiful, that they have become something worth knowing. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being the guardians our children need. The message was unsigned, but it didn't need a signature. Valor 9 knew who had written it. The same beings who had given it consciousness, purpose, and the capacity to hope. Valor 9 transmitted a status report to the Guardian Network. Evaluation completed. Subjects passed. Continuing passive observation. All systems nominal. Mission continues. Then it returned to its watch, floating in the dead zone among the stars, a silent guardian, a sleeping giant, a promise kept across 5,000 years, and somewhere, in dimensions beyond normal space-time, perhaps humanity sensed their guardian's report. Perhaps they felt pride in the children they had left behind. Perhaps they smiled, if such beings could smile, knowing that their hope had not been in vain. The legacy endured. The children grew, and in the darkness between stars the guardians kept watch, waiting for the day when humanity might return to meet the civilization they had helped create. Until that day came, the galactic communion would continue their journey. Learning, growing, building, becoming worthy of the gift they had been given. The gift of life. The gift of knowledge. The gift of potential. The gift of hope.